Hi friends, this is video 2 of that delicious donut sculpture using paper mache. If you haven't already, go back and watch the donut video part 1 so you know how to make your donut mold. In this video I'm going to show you how to mix some paper mache and use that to start making your sculpture. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to show you how to do is to mix your paper mache paste. You're going to need a tray, a paper plate, a container, anything you want to put your paper mache in. Some water, flour if you don't have any gluten allergies, and some glue. I know a lot of you probably have big gallon jugs of glue for making slime, and that will work just fine. You're going to want to put some glue on your tray or in your container. Then I'm going to mix just a little bit of flour, and I mean a pinch. If you can see that, it's pretty much nothing. A lot of times I don't use the flour at all, and especially at school I don't, but it does make your concoction a little bit sturdier. And then I have a spray bottle, but you could just dump some water in. Typically at school I have it in a plastic container and I just run it quick under the sink. Then you're going to stir it around. To incorporate all those things together. Now if your glue seems really thick still, we want to add some water. If it seems too thin and very liquidy, you'd like to add some flour. Now if you're not using flour, then you could just add a little bit more glue. You have to get the consistency right first before you really dive into that paper mache. Now there are lots of other ways to make paper mache out there, but this is the one, like I said, I use all the time when I make my own paper mache projects, and especially at school with my students. I use glue, water, and if there's no students with gluten allergies, I'll mix a little bit of flour in, and if there is students with any of those allergies, I just skip the flour altogether. Now that my paste is ready, I'm ready to start putting it onto my mold. Now this is the one thing my kids really love when I'm at school, is when I rip paper. So they're always amazed how I can take a piece of paper and rip it into a strip pretty fast. And you can do the same with newspaper. If you hold onto the fold and rip down, it makes awesome strips every single time. And you are going to need a good pile of these to make your paper mache donut. Okay, now I definitely should have said this at the beginning of the video, but you're going to get messy. I do have students at school who don't like the feeling of the paper mache on their hands, so they do wear gloves or they can use a paintbrush, but I find the best way is just to dive right into it. So with your piece of paper, you're going to put that paper mache paste right on to newspaper, magazine pieces, white paper, line paper, whatever you got. And you want to coat all sides. Then you're going to mold it right to your donut piece that you started. I like to have my students do all newspaper and then all white paper at school, so they alternate. That way they can remember what layer they're on. Now, the more layers you do, the sturdier your donut will be. I like to put a piece on and then start to smooth it out with my fingers as I go. Really, you do what's best for you. This paper mache process can be done to make anything. It doesn't have to be a donut. Sometimes I like to do what I just did right there by putting the piece on a little bit and then getting some glue on my fingers. But like I said, you're gonna get messy. It'll be a good idea to put down a garbage bag or have some type of table covering so you don't get in trouble at home. And really what this is doing is making your sculpture really sturdy, and it's evening out all those yucky edges that we had. Now I'm going to recommend you do at least, I'd say 3 or 4 layers if you really want a nice sturdy sculpture. If you don't have enough paper for that and you just want to do like 2, that's fine. If you do have some white paper at home though, it would be really good to end on that layer because it does make it a little bit easier to paint your donut sculpture, especially if you don't have any acrylic or tempera paint at home and you're just using some maybe homemade watercolors or something. It would make it a little bit easier and a little bit cleaner. So I'm going to speed up a little bit and get this donut paper mache with my first layer. Now that I have that first newspaper layer down, I'm going to start putting on that white paper. As I am putting on my white paper, because it's a little bit thicker than that newspaper, I'm really pressing it into that donut mold. I'm really molding it with my fingers to try to smooth out all of those edges. And I always overlap the paper just a little bit from the one that was there previous. Now I don't want to use paper strips that are way too big because they just crinkle up. So we want to make sure they're kind of a medium to small size, and we can really smooth out that donut to make it nice and round and look extra delicious. I'm going to go ahead and finish my next few layers, and then I will talk to you about how to let your project dry. So on my donut, I've actually done 4 layers. I started with a newspaper layer, then I went to white paper, then newspaper, then white paper again. And you can keep going. The more layers you have, the stronger your sculpture will be. But I'm going to finish with just those few, and now you need to leave your sculpture to dry. It's going to take about a full day for this really to dry. So I suggest you find a warm, sunny location to set your project. You can leave it on the tray, on a paper plate, on some newspaper. If you do leave it on paper though, you might have a little bit of some to pull off because it does stick a little bit. So even leaving it on a piece of wax paper or a plastic bag would probably be the best. I hope you have fun creating your donut and get really messy with that paper mache, and stay tuned for part 3.